Right. So therapies that are available are also so this one I go through already. So cyclosporin is also used. Okay, so therefore antigen. The button line. So they ask tuition, but only when it's necessary.
How they can still living?
Sorry?
How they can still?
They can still live, but they have to be very careful and be on high antibiotics and all those things. So during infection, they are always reliant on antibiotics. But if you get viral infection or cancer, sorry, no can do. Yeah. So then plasmapheresis, so you remove the antigen antibody complexes for short-term reduction in symptoms. Now, if you notice, because autoimmune disease are sort of like a genetic, quote unquote, it's not really genetic, but it's also genetic. So in a sense, you're not able to cure it. Okay, all the treatment options basically lead to one word, whereby it's just reduction in symptoms. Okay. Remember, I did mention to you all about cancer symptoms and cancer cells being in circulation, right? And then how the kinetics of the immune cells can move of the cancer cells, right? You are not diagnosed with cancer just by having some cancer cells in your body. Okay, you get diagnosed with cancer, for example, if it's like a skin cancer, you get melanoma. So the melanoma that is formed on the skin is basically the symptom. Okay, so it's the same for autoimmune disease as well. Rheumatoid arthritis, joint pains. That is the only thing that I can do at the moment. Okay, until somebody smart comes up with a CRISPR that directly edits certain things, or be able to pinpoint this person have what sort of cause of the disease, then only they can use precision medicine to come in. Okay, so this term I want to introduce to you all is precision medicine. Okay, so what precision medicine does is that you can diagnose the person, to know what this person react to, and then to use the most precise drug to then treat the person. Okay, for the time being, the only way to cure an autoimmune disease will be through precision medicine. But until now, because autoimmune disease are caused by multiple factors, okay, the use of precision medicine is still not being looked in so much for autoimmune disease. Okay, why? Because cancer is more glamorous. People would tend to target cancer more. But hopefully one day, maybe one of you guys, okay, will be able to find out, okay, there's this specific autoimmune disease. Okay, if you look at gene A, gene B, C, if there's a mutation in gene A, or if there's no mutation, or if there's mutation in gene B, or mutation in gene C, so these are the options that. Well, I hope one day you guys go there, because people always say that the teacher really hopes that the student after that. Yes, 5 minutes short break then. Go into Gvhd and transplantation.
在那里卷。
啊？
我们懂他刚才说那个什么，把别人的免疫细胞转移到另外一个人身上，然后没有，他没有把免疫细胞转移到人身上，那他是说的。那他们说从一个人身上提取到，你说是抗体吗？看哦，我怎么一直听着免疫系统？我在想，
笑死了！为什么不说他的穿衣？
写个要领。那我这什么？什么意思？这个我跟你讲啊，这个
嗯，这个吗？瞎炒的呀？这个是啊，有什么那怎么会这样？那下面的约呢？下面那个约呢？就是约会的约呢？爱呀，就是爱呀，爱就是。
对啊，你还有没有信？还有信？
就是长，长辈的长，长就是长呀，长长长长。张啊，谁不认识啊？侮辱谁呢？我在侮辱谁的智商？谁天堂谁不认识啊？不知道。是一般都很简单，都能看出来。
那不是肖吗？那是赵吗？那肖的繁体字是什么？走之旁，走之旁的繁体字是？那走之旁意思是没有繁体吗？我逍遥的逍有繁体字吗？肖就是加走之旁那个肖啊，你们啊就是这，好吧？哎，诗啊，为什么会是帅啊？你帅后面是金啊，不可能是 B 啊。新洲日报啊，
没有啊，没有。没有。 我猜的。
order
这个意思。What？ 啊。
Discussion for the law. Yes, please. And discussion and the result analyzing because the result that we have, I don't know, like what description. I want to read about the paper, but I don't know. No, like any paper like about Eliza, analyzing.
So it's not applicable.
Tuesday, Saturday.
too much to get on the 27th or whatever I can lecture. What lecture do you have?
501.
Oh, okay. Hey, on Wednesday I don't have a class session.
That starts with you, right?
Well, I still have multiple class. 4th of December already.
Yeah.
Okay, can you look where is the left? No, that's my okay, so basically I don't have any more.
Next session.
So I don't have, so today 2 hours, after that I don't have class until 13.
Yes.
What about 14?
14 ada satu discussion.
So 13 and 14 got class, and then 28 got class. 28th of December.
28th of December.
Yeah, can you just try it?
Okay, and then on the 9th of January got one more class. That was another class, 9th of January. Is that right?
Yeah.
Then even for lab, I don't have. I don't want to.
No. So hard to be a student.
How far we can go and really touch the gene therapy. So, gene therapy. Sorry, not gene therapy. Yes. Gvhd. What is Gvhd? Gvhd means intra.
Simpsons. I think the Simpsons for the first one to block the wireless source. In that case, like, I think the graph will attack the host one in the vulnerable transport.
Have a match healthy donor. Okay, the bone marrow is then being transplanted in this patient. the center of so graft versus host disease. Right? Past transplant your bone marrow is that this transplanted bone marrow will be capable of by good sequencing. Okay, they found out has slowly formed a hybrid. Have a certain immune response towards the cancer. This hybrid occurs, okay, it is able to get rid of your minimal residual disease as well. Must be using the hybridization or to allow the graph is capable of helping in transplantation, especially in leukemia. So the thing is that immunology is such a balancing act, okay? And even for autoimmunity and even for transplantation, you need some sort or some level of immunity to understand what is actually going on. Because if nobody looked at this, bone marrow transplantation will still lead to patients who relapse. Okay? And therefore it has been tweaked. Okay? So later on I'll show you some of the slides. Alright? So the thing is that the thing that I want to bring up to you guys is that yes, there is graft versus host disease, there is host versus graft disease, but all of these diseases very well depends on what disease you are trying to treat. Okay? Graft versus host disease sometimes might be good, sometimes might be bad. Host versus graft disease normally is bad because you're getting rid of the graft.
Yeah.
Okay? So that one we just put it as normally bad. Because you are engrafting something that your body needs.
You rejected it.
Why you still want to reject it? Okay? But that's why the aim here is graft versus host disease. I don't talk too much about host versus graft because you all will know what host versus graft is. It's basically the host rejecting the graft. So why do a transplant if you want your host to reject the graft? True? True. So that's why we will be looking more into graft versus host disease for and also transplantation. Is considered an autoimmune problem, and the issue normally arises when transplantation occurs. So, the thing with transplantation also that several autograft, we need that you take one part of the body. From one part of the body to another. Well, you might be taking that from taking one of the bones from your blood, bone marrow. And you also have something I haven't talked before, we did lenticle.
I went to him and said, didn't know. I was speaking to him and the time I talked with him, he said, where are you guys from Iraq? He said, I think you misunderstand him again, the brother of you. I said, oh, yes. Oh my God.
When you put mechanical things into the body, there would be other complications. Okay, there will be other complications. It's just that Gvhd or post versus graft it's not a problem. Yeah, exactly. Alright, so that's the xenograft. So, transplantable organs: heart, cornea, trachea, lung, liver, kidney, skin, vascular, pancreas, etc., etc. And the reason for transplantation is just for the replacement of failed organs or transplantation to cure cancer. So this is an example of transplantation to cure cancer. Okay, whereby you introduce something and then it causes graft versus host disease. When graft versus host disease occurs, it has to come from a healthy donor. So it has to be immunologically competent. The recipient must not be able to mount an immune response. That's why we give immunosuppression or immunization. The recipient expresses tissue antigens that are not present. This person, okay, or PhD, or PhD. So you have things like age, you have HLA movement, CV virus, XX. Male is XY. So, what was the keywords now? Recipient expresses tissue antigens that are not present in the donor. So, why antigen present in you? Exactly. Exactly. So double X. This one is. So that's why the donor has got things for the recipients, has got antigens that were not expressed in the donor. So the only way that you can have GvHD is when a female. If no, no problem. Okay? Because how
Okay, everyone knows what's the question already.
Okay, then you also have wrist injury. So clinical signs, things like liver. So you get liver cholestasis, and then skin you get inflammatory rash, and then in the gut you get secretory diarrhea, which means that the graft is attacking all these different parts. Alright? So the reason why Gvhd occurs, we need to go back to basic technology. You have your auditors, your regulators, and your enforcers. Okay, so I think you all know, I explained a bit already. So your auditors are things like the dendritic cells, B cell, macrophages, etc., etc. You will audit things which are outside, inside. You will process the specimen and present the data. So the auditors basically take in all the different antigens, process them, and then express them on HLA molecule to present the data or the antigen. Once that's being done, okay, so once that's being done, it will then communicate with the regulators and the enforcers. Okay, so if let's say it is a bad signal, it will be picked up by the enforcers, and the enforcers will go and attack. If it's a safe signal, it will go to the regulator. Regulator say don't attack, just continue life as usual. Alright? So this is how communicating trouble occurs. Okay? Simple like this one. I really explained so many times already because you can understand it very well. Okay? So the thing is that why is it that during a transplantation things has to match? Okay? For example, bone marrow transplantation, you're actually transplanting an immune system, okay? And the HLA acts as the T cell super antigen. You remember super antigen, you know?
Yeah.
Remember, right? So super antigen is like something which is, it could be an antigen, the whole of it. Okay? So the thing is that all somatic tissue expresses one, and the transferred T cell could overreact. However, Autograph is you take your leg and put on your hand, cannot occur.
Cannot occur.
You're just replacing only,
Theoretically cannot occur. I was thinking so lah.
Yeah, cannot occur. Theoretically. Hypothetically, it wouldn't occur. But if it's an isograph,
it could still have some.
there might be isograph. Why? Maybe because one twin has been living in at birth, one twin is in Malaysia, the other twin is in Africa. Okay, so the pool of the pool of things that has been seen by both the immune system might be different. So there might be differences as well. So, but the thing is that matching will still occur. Okay, but hypothetically there is still a chance. Okay, especially. Sometimes they would have. So the RNA molecule shows what's inside, and we are all different inside. Therefore, Gvhd can also be a result of B cell reactivity. The polymorphism occurs, for example, antigen from chromosome, Y chromosome, is being expressed ubiquitously in unique target HA1, which is normally polymorphic, which
Yeah, it's Gvhd prophylaxis. But Gvhd for prophylaxis, you have less Gvhd, which means possibility of getting rid of MRD will be lower, leading to more relapse. Okay. Yeah, you also get more infection, by the way. Alright, because you are actually but when you have minimal prophylaxis, you get more Gvhd, get less infection as well as but the thing with Gvhd is also very important to see whether amount of prophylaxis. No, no, the other way around. They need to increase more prophylaxis so that, but then you will end up with so you can see that line, okay, whereby you get the proportion of progression free. So if I'm not mistaken, the straight line here is prophylaxis. The bottom line is more prophylaxis, and this is the number of people that wait, let me see. Proportion of so proportion of progression free, which means they don't have any relapse at all. The number of them, the percentage of them. So in the group which get less prophylaxis, okay, their progression in the disease-free rate is much higher, which means more people don't have relapse. But if you get more prophylaxis, the relapse rate comes back. Only 55% of them don't get relapse. 45% of them get relapse. Okay. So the thing is that in order for them to do all these what is being done previously. Okay, whereby if high dose radiation, high dose chemotherapy, wait. If stem cell transplantation, or ablating, just give some immune, and then you give the stem cells, and then you manipulate the immune response to disease. you get better results. But when you do this, transplantation always not only and then duration of the neutropenia, which means mismatch unrelated infection risk is normally lower, but if you have match or related, the first thing is in the first month, whereby the host immune is totally effective, whereby you are susceptible to skin, mucous membrane, and also neutropenia. Patients are focused cellular immunity, but that is where your graft versus host disease start come up. So if you notice the ENV fungus is still the same, you still get some staphylococcus epidermis, respiratory and enteroviruses. However, you can see that the pathogens are getting much more rarer. Okay. So you can be Fungal infection, normally at the lung. You can see at the bottom right lung where there's the white patches. Yeah, so that's the basic fungal infection. Incidence of 10 to 20%. Mortality is relatively high, 7%, and mortality is 5%. That what finish all the basic fungal for 1/3 of his lung is bloody lung. So, risk factors for invasive fungal infection are normally associated with acute GvHD, ATG, treatment, age, fungal colonization, wrong entrepreneur, email, any of these lah. So, you have these sort of things. Less common are things like adenovirus, influenza, parental influenza, RSV, and rhinovirus. And very rare, again, virus and antivirus and polyomavirus. It's a little bit different. Look at these names. You have your ver.
Stopping virus from the only stopping.
No, it's not used.
So it will carry any side effect? The
They normally take antiviral for life.
target specifically, for example, like an antibody that stops COVID through binding with the spike protein. It's not that. It's just blanket reducing the transcription and translation ability of the body to produce new protein. Okay? So, other possible treatment are RSV antibody, ribavirin, hiraminase inhibitor, and vimartazine. So, these are sort of what they do. Alright? So, one example, in 1991, there was a community influenza outbreak in Houston, Texas. 27% of the 50 hematopoietic stem cell transplantation outpatient and 29% of the inpatients with acute respiratory infection has documented influenza. 8%. So 75% of all the influenza cases in after the transplant and just before the engraftment of the kidney.是吗？
一分一吧，一分好。
我查一下。
细分啊，肯定是医生啊。不，正确的就是医生。我小时候学的就是医生。面壁。那个是音译，就是只有秘鲁的时候读秘鲁。
文档，文档啊，
文档。档案。
可以挡着。
档案。文章。 订正还是订正？我会用订正。
首先，老师会跟他讲的我呢，很多字都是可以这样子用的，反着来用。虽然我现在算点小差，例改了定词也可能是很真心，很引人的。
不用没改可以。
文会改那个，方案会改成你。
欧洲讲方面改成
一本。
你看他念氛围感，我一念氛围感，他念氛围感。
多音字学习了，让我们都习惯那个气氛，你的加的氛围。我是和你才上课时，每次去每天的那生词，精神对，你看这个你想的时候口语全是氛围的，我不难说起。
他们也是
就可以
一个字。
那这样子教出人家。
没有啊，我是改的是我们
对吧？一说明好好，要跟你说。
金的，金的，那我会读金的啊。金的啊。
不是的，什么就是把这文给掉了，这什么关系？新的学习有点奇怪。然后我们每个人写这么多的，这么不需要写的。
然后差。
跟我也讲，所以我刚刚
都差不多。
差
不多。
以前那个对我来讲，语言就是这个我在听到我有些纠结，
没有有些纠结，不是。
刚才你总结了，你看我氛围感，你看给基于这个老就好。嘉宾的嘉啥嘉？嘉宾的哪个？哦，上面一个是哦。你呢？ 大人还跟你的那些，
哎，老师那天做完那个实验有落下的实验报告吗？我实验报告失踪了啊！就是那张纸啊，不是，就是实验室有落下的实验报告吗？那个实验报告找不见了，我说实验室那边有吗？啊？你在说什么呀？不是我的，不是我的 lab report love，leave，I left my lab report 那个这个哦，pro 对 yes left 丢了，唉，行啊，但都听不懂，都听不懂，好吧好吧，啊，个的声明。
is used. Included gene or even with that have therapeutic molecule. The genes which contribute to disease development. Hereditary or acquired genetic defects. Right. Clear? Are we clear here? Any questions before I continue? Understand that? So gene therapy requires
This one, yes, because like the IV vaccine, like this one for enhancing the immunity, but the gene therapy, like you are putting the gene instead of the gene, like effective, like make the disease. This is the difference. Yeah. No, no. Yeah. Huh?
a hereditary or acquired genetic defect. Or acquired genetic means something. An immunological response. Okay? Then you might argue with me that, but Dr. Listen, you said immunological response. So is it not a gene therapy? It's not a gene therapy.
Means that there is defects. Okay? So the keyword is to have defects. So in gene therapy, the DNA encoding a therapeutic protein or a replacement protein is packaged within a vector, which is then transported to the DNA inside the cell within the body. The disease is treated with minimal toxicity by the expression of the inserted DNA by the cell machinery. In 1990, FDA for the first time approved a gene therapy experiment on an ADA skid in the United States after the treatment of a little girl called Ashanti de Silva. Okay, so the ADA skid is basically a severe neurological disorder whereby the person does not have an immune system. Okay, after that there has been approximately 1,700 clinical trials on patients that have been performed with various techniques and genes for numerous diseases. Okay, now this 1,700 might have already increased. How do you want to find them to be increased? You go to somewhere called clinicaltrials.gov.org, no, clinicaltrials.gov, and then you look for gene therapy, and then you'll be able to find what's the latest number. Okay, so many diseases such as ADA skid, X-linked skid, Leber's congenital amaurosis, retinal disease, Parkinson's disease. Research is ongoing, hemophilia, tyrosinemia, bilirubin, hereditary defect, which means that gene therapy only treat those people who have hereditary defect. Hereditary or acquired genetic defect. Hereditary means born with that. Okay? Acquired means that could also be used for treatment. So the thing we evaluate genetic defect, a normal person should have genetic protein. So only we are going to use. consumption, what else? High cholesterol, taking a lot of red meat, right? So those are the diseases which is very much dependent on who the funders tend to fund. And if let's say you're talking about big money, normally people will focus on cancer. That's this one, they will look at typhoid and enteric diseases. Alright, so those are diseases of the poor. So normally pharmaceutical companies don't actually fund so much diseases of the poor. They tend to fund diseases of the rich. Okay.
So is that thing also we can differentiate between gene therapy?
So in terms of
some is goal and also
gene therapy is basically quite straightforward, whereby you are trying to replace a missing or defective gene. Doesn't matter if it's hereditary or acquired. And you replace it by having a functional protein that's being produced so that the person don't get that sickness anymore. So that's gene therapy. Okay?
So that also can be used as a reason to differentiate between the mRNA vaccines and also.
Yeah, that is the reason.
That is the reason.
Yeah, a vaccine is to stimulate immune response, but the mRNA vaccine is not a gene therapy, although it uses the immune system, the body system to produce a certain functional protein. It's not a functional protein. You don't really need that protein in your body, but that protein will then be used to stimulate an immune response. Understand?
Understand.
Okay. Wait. So some other diseases also can go through already. Okay, so what are the types of gene therapy? There are two main types of gene therapy. One is called the somatic cell gene therapy, okay, which means your normal bodily cell therapy. The other one is called a germline gene therapy. Alright? A somatic cell gene therapy means that the therapeutic genes are transferred into somatic cells, the normal cells, differentiated cells, matured cells, body cells. Okay? So for example, you introduce the gene into bone marrow cells, blood cells, skin cells, etc. This will not be inherited in later generations, which means that it doesn't go into the germline. Okay? So it's at present all researchers are directed to correct genetic defects in somatic cells. Now for germline gene therapy, it's basically therapeutic genes that are transferred into germ cells. Examples, genes being introduced into eggs as well as sperms. Okay? It is heritable and can pass on to later generation. However, for safety, ethical and technical reasons,
You've got the ex vivo approach, and you've got the in vivo approach. Ex vivo means that out of the body, what's normally done is that you isolate the gels, the cells with the gene defect from a single patient, you isolate, and then you grow the isolated cells in culture, and then you infect them with your viruses or whatever method it is. Then corrected protein and have the corrected gene. So that these cells are being propagated, reinserted or refused. Used into the person. Okay. Into the person. So you can use things like a systemic infusion, normal infusion. You have tissue injection directed at a certain tissue. You have also biolysis. So this is the therapy which was done in 1997 to correct a deficiency of an enzyme called adenosine deaminase. Okay, this adenosine deaminase, which is missing, causes the combined immune deficiency. This particular disease, and it's caused by the defect in the gene that encodes for ADA. Okay. So ADA normally accumulates and destroy T lymphocytes, and this destroys immunity that suffers from infectious diseases and okay, for now. Because this is a deaminase, okay, so it basically causes the deoxyadenosine to be removed. So it's an enzyme. So because this enzyme is not functional, the precursor is always there, and this precursor causes T cell destruction. Alright? So because this enzyme is not there, the deoxyadenosine basically increase. It's toxic to the body. And the toxicity is shown by the destruction of T cells. So it basically causes you not to have a T cell response. So people who have this disease, they basically suffer from infections, diseases, and die at a very young age because the body cannot fight. Okay? So what they did was that they basically cloned the ADA gene, the adenosine deaminase gene, the enzyme, okay? And then they put it into a retrovirus, okay? And then after that this is the retrovirus with the gene of interest. Okay, it's being produced, and this is used to infect the T cells from the patient. So they harvest the T cells from the patient, okay, and then they modify the T cells to have the ADA gene. And when this is done, they grow a lot of the cells, and then these cells are being implanted back into the patient. Okay, which means that I take something that is missing a certain enzyme, I give it the gene so that it will then produce that particular enzyme, and then I reinfuse it back to the patient. And after the reinfusion, what is going to happen is that the patient will have that particular gene and the particular enzyme, and therefore the person will not have the disease. Okay? So the T cells will not be. So yeah, it can't be, but the purpose is yeah, and then that one is not really supposed to have AD. Gene defect. So in the absence of the TFPR, chloride ion concentrate within the cell. An adenovirus that carries the CFTR. But it's being replicated in the laboratory. Even evenly the encode for the virus. So the ex vivo insert genes into the cell. So when you make this virus in your lab, there's a possibility that the viral gene being used as a helper will then be combined with your the gene that is here, any of the
it's
now this will basically give you an idea why is it a lot of the look at this. Adenovirus 23%, retrovirus 19.7%. This is almost 50% already. Then you have vaccinavirus. Let's not look at the naked one first. Vaccinavirus, another 8%. So this one is 44, 44 and 8, 52, 52 and 5, 57, 57 and 3, 60, 60 and 3, 63, 63%. Why? Yeah. Percentage is
from
they are like Turkish people. But maybe, yeah, yes, yes. But this is like we are working on that thing, on that concept since 2011. Yeah. We're trying to say like talking about that to people. No, it's for this is the no, because like I don't know, like I still get
this is the
Cancer immunotherapy. So imagine if this COVID doesn't pop up. Vectors, the two main
okay. For viral, you have all the different viruses. For non-viral, you have pure DNA construct, you have lipoplexes. So lipoplexes means that they are DNA together with lipid. It's the same as the mRNA vaccine. Okay, mRNA vaccine is also lipid plus the mRNA. Then you have DNA molecular conjugate and you got human artificial chromosomes. Okay. So in terms of retroviral, the recombinant retroviruses have the ability to integrate into host genome in a stable fashion. Alright? So the key thing for gene therapy is not that only it has to produce the effective gene, it's supposed to be stable as well. Stable meaning that
Can stay.
right? What does stable mean?
Can able to stay in the genome.
Cells that have divided as well. Okay? Imagine T cells, for example, the ADA kit, the T cells are finite. Okay? Which means after they attack and everything, they get exhausted and they die off. Right? So what about the others when it differentiated? What about the memory T cells that are available? If the memory T cells that are available, stable fashion, it normally means integration in one genome. Of about less than 3.4 kilobase. What does it mean? Replication defective virus.
So the virus entering will produce a functional virus. Not a functional, but the virus that is dangerous to us.
Right. So it means that after entering the cell, cannot make a new viral vector. How do we do that? I think we have 2 plasmid as well as we have 3 plasmid system and 4 plasmid system. We have 2 systems in the lab that we use. So it could be your original together with the protein of the capsid or other membrane or whatever. And then in the 4 plasmid system, they even take out other things to put it into another plasmid. Why this is important is that in this one, it could replicate inside the cell. These 3, when it goes into the cell, after it's used, it's no use anymore. It cannot make more of these genes, of this vector. Alright? This vector can be made more, this vector cannot. Alright? Which means that when it's packaged into a plasmid, then into a virus, it will only have this initial core plasmid. And these other 3, after it's being used, it's gone.
So that's how make sure the virus will be duplicated.
Yeah.
After you clean it.
Correct. But the analogy is very strange. Even with these 4 classmates, there's a chance of 1 in 100,000 of these 4 to come together to form one full classmate. 1 in 100,000. Okay, and then when we produce virus, we don't produce 1 million or 2 million. We produce the power of 10, the power of 11. So if you screen through that, you would find some which have those particular genes. Right? Some might have 2, some might have 3, some might have all. So that's the danger. Alright? So that's the danger. That's why a lot of them are not FDA approved. Okay? So this is for retroviruses. Okay? So you can see the picture of it. And then you have adenovirus. Now adenovirus has a good DNA genome and therefore it's a good vector. It basically targets non-dividing human cell. Okay? Example is the common cold. So if you notice, retrovirus target dividing cell. Adenovirus targets human cell. Non-dividing human cell. So this is how they use different viruses to target different disease. Okay? If you need to target, for example, your immune cells, you need to use something like a retrovirus. If you're targeting like muscle cells, skin cells, which don't divide that often, you want to use an adenovirus. Okay? So different viruses also have different virus. Okay? It's a human virus that can infect. Earlier on, we were talking about targeting different cells. This one targets certain chromosome, which means that when you deliver the gene, you know it will go to chromosome 19. Okay? The next 4 DNA virus, so the adeno-associated virus enters the host cell, becomes double-stranded, and gets chromosome. Virus that I normally use. If you notice on the main antivirus is only used at about 3% compared to your normal adenovirus. Because of HIV. Cancer cells are fast dividing. So how it's done is that you have your antiviral vector with the RNA then gets into the cell, RNA to DNA reverse transcription, and then it sort of go into a pre-integration complex, which then allows it to integrate with the chromosome or the genome, and then you will express RNA, and then you will have all the whatever protein or things that's being produced. Okay, so that's for the antivirus.
So if we put this antivirus, then the patient go on and test HIV test, will they be positive?
No, because HIV is test for other things. It's part of the HIV immune family, but it has been silenced a lot more. Alright? And then normally for HIV, you test for what? You test for the the target. Amount of complex. So this one I think you all know because of the mRNA vaccine, but just to quickly carry you all through, you basically have a lipocomplex which is complex together with some sort of transferrin, okay? And what's going to happen is that this whole thing will then be easily attached to something called a specific interaction with transferrin receptor, and this will basically cause the uptake of the lipoplex into the cell. And when the lipoplex enter into the cell, you would basically have the gene entering into the nucleus, and then you get expression of the gene. Okay, so this is what the mRNA vaccine does. They use lipoplexes as well. Okay, so the thing is that most of it would get degraded by the lysosome. Alright, so this is also not a very efficient method, but for the mRNA vaccine, they want it to be as inefficient as possible because they don't want too much of the antigen to be expressed. Okay. You also have DNA molecular conjugates, commonly used synthetic conjugate, which is the poly-L-lysine, bound to a specific target cell receptor. The therapeutic DNA is then made to combine with this conjugate to form a complex. It basically avoids lysosomal breakdown of DNA. So this is very similar to your lipoplex, okay? But instead of using a lipid, they basically use a synthetic conjugate, which is the poly-L-lysine that binds to a target cell receptor. So in this part, we use transferrin. You can actually just use the poly-L-lysine to your transferrin and then attach it to the DNA. Okay. Now the poly-L-lysine basically avoids lysosomal breakdown of the DNA, and therefore you don't need to use as much DNA compared to the lipoplexes. So it's sort of like modification. Okay? It's just like your iPhone 14 to your 15, you know, minor improvement. So pretty much the same. Alright? So people tend to then
No, I'm not like I think that's the question.
Percentage.
1%, yeah, it's gonna be no 8. Like the vertical range transplantation and everything this for extend.